All right, so one quick thing that Jeff showed me last week after class was with the minor figure field. So if you can go under your site and fix this if you like, or you can just watch me. It may not be possible to fix if you've already added in example content, but if you go to Structure, Content Types, Person, Manage Fields, and you go to the minor figure field here, rather than actually having all of this text as the on value, we can make this be empty and use the use field label instead of the on value as label, which means that the checkbox will just be a checkbox with minor figure next to it. And despite having done this for years, I never noticed that one small configuration until it was pointed out to me last week. So now, if we go to person, you can see, scroll down, we have our minor figure and the checkbox. So thank you, Jeff, for pointing that out. All right, so here we are, week 3 of 3. Thank you so much for sticking with me for the third part. I'm honestly amazed at the turnout here for a 3-part workshop. This is pretty great. What this workshop will cover today, we will talk about image styles. Did we cover image styles last time?
You mean like PNG, JPEG, that kind of thing?
How to resize images and like making square versions. All right, great. We will cover that today in that case. We can talk briefly about users and roles. We will use views to pull our data together. We will use views to also generate some blocks, and we can talk about what blocks are and how to use them. We'll then quickly cover menus, not a whole lot to say there, and then finally getting your site off of Pantheon. And I will warn you, I have about like a 60% success rate of like being able to seamlessly show getting a site off of Pantheon and onto like your standard cPanel based cheap hosting on the first try. I succeeded in the Wednesday class. I'm also coming off of a day of literally the worst tech karma of my entire life. Yesterday, everything I touched broke. So I'm hoping that like the gremlins have like had their fun and will leave me alone today. But if it doesn't work, it's the gremlins. So
average job. So yesterday was the worst day, and today will be the best.
There we go. Success on the first try. We'll hope for that. All right. So. A reminder, last time we set up the person content type, and this time we're going to start populating it with some example data. So in order to make it possible for me to be able to do this work as well, I've conveniently written this information on the whiteboard way over there, which I hope that folks can more or less read. On the left we have the list of people, their birth, their death. If you'd like to copy and paste a snippet of their biography from Wikipedia, be my guest. For George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, we'll take their image from Wikipedia and upload that to the image field. And both of them are key people, so you shouldn't check the minor figure box. Millington Smith, we have birth and death. There's no image, and you can check the not a key person box. So, is everyone set to go populate some content types? All right, let's do it. Question?
Key person is the reverse of not.
Yes, we just leave that box, leave that blank. Yeah.
So I haven't gone through it yet, but because we just changed the content type for minor person, but it's a required field, and it's a checkbox that by default perhaps is unchecked. So will that blow up if it's required and it's not checked?
Good question. Why don't you try and let me know? I don't remember if I set mine to be, I don't think I set mine to be required. There's no red star next to mine, so not. But yes, I suspect, I'm going 70% yes, it will be angry at you, and you'll have to then change the content type so that it's not required if it's going to be off in a lot of cases. Yeah?
So last time we did the thing where it like automatically created the people. So like George
Oh.
Washington, should we just go edit him instead of make a new?
Yeah, if you already have George Washington in there, go edit the existing one. That's right. We actually, I don't think we did the automatic no title with reference create in the Wednesday class, so that's, thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah, question.
With people, can you add a unique constraint so you don't add the same person over and over again, or?
Maybe. There might be a module for that. Usually what it does is it allows you to create it, and then if you look at the automatic path auto for it, it'll just keep appending numbers afterwards. So the first one will be George Washington, the second will be George Washington -0, then -1, and so on and so on. But there might be a module that will constrain that. I've tried to deal with that on some sites before, where I was getting duplicate entries, but I haven't. I don't know of a good way off the top of my head. Not that there isn't one, but.
So if it can download the images and then re-upload them, there's no way to specify view or alter.
There's a different field that will allow you to do that, but yeah, the standard image field is like an image upload field, so.
How do you see that you already put George Washington in?
So I'd actually forgotten about this, but to see the content you've already got, just click on content. I open it in a new tab here. So this will show, if you don't change anything, all of the nodes that are in your database, both people and quotes. So if you want to limit it, let's say you have a lot of data and you want to limit it just to the people, you can toggle down this type and then hit filter, and it will just show those ones. So is the minor field thing getting upset if it's not checked?
Yeah,
All right, yeah, you want to change that to be a non-required field.
So just make George Washington a minor.
Oh no.
You have to re-enter that data.
That's okay.
Anything to avoid retyping.
All right, are people? Are you?
Find the quotes.
Oh, quotes. You're gonna make some up.
Oh, make some.
Yeah, we'll make up. Are people already entering the quotes as well? We can we'll get to that in a second. How does anyone else need more time putting people in? Okay, all right. I won't rush you. All right. Are people ready? No? How many people still need more time?
You could go on and I could
Okay.
listen on.
So I mean, I'll do one thing here, and you can keep working on data entry. You'll notice here that this looks a little bit wonky. I think last time we talked about the display for different content types. So in this case, even though for our quotes doesn't really matter because we're going to be displaying them someplace else, this does look a little bit off, and we are actually going to be showing this person node page on our site. So let's go in and touch it up a little bit. So we'll go to Structure, Content Types, Person, Manage Display. And what we'll do is just set the label here for birth and death to be inline. We will make the label for image hidden. We don't need it saying image. And minor figure, let's actually just hide this whole thing. Because we're using the label for it, it will, yeah, I think just say minor figure. I think that should only appear on people who have the box checked off. You know, while they are minor figures, we don't necessarily need it to be like splashed right across the page. That's mostly like metadata that we're going to use as part of a different display. So we can just hide that altogether, and it won't show up. So
Where did
let's.
you get into this again?
Oh, this is under Structure, Content Types, Person, Manage Display. And we can even rearrange these. We'll have birth and death towards the top, put image first, birth, death, and then biography. And we'll have these two be inline hidden label for image. All right. Does everyone have that? All right, we'll hit save. Be sure to remember to save it. And then if we close this overlay, we'll see, here we go, that looks a lot nicer. We don't see the image here as part of it because he doesn't have an image, but if we go back to Alexander Hamilton, we'll see, there he is, with his image.
What did you do to get him to the left?
My theme is doing that automatically. There's within the theme. If let's see if I can find this here. The image styles. Let's see if this changes things.
Sorry, I missed how you got to this.
I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, so let's don't do anything yet until we see if this actually does what I think it's going to do. Ah, it does. That's kind of nice. So in adaptive theme, if you're using one of the adaptive theme sub-themes like we set up last week, so in this case I'm using Corolla. So if we go to Appearance Settings, Corolla, there's a handy-dandy little thing within the module configuration, or within the theme configuration. If you scroll down, there's a thing for image styles, and you can choose whether to have images in your image field just have the default left alignment, be floating right, floating left, or center. If you're using a different theme, that probably won't have this option. Do other people see this? Okay. If you're using another theme, it probably doesn't have this option, but you can set it using CSS to float left or right. All right, so we've tidied up our people here. We've added them to the database.
Sorry, I missed how you actually view the content.
Oh, so if you X out your overlay, if you have like an administrative overlay up, just hit this X and it'll take you.
So do we have to see that on the front page? We have to have
On the front page. That's.
Is this the front page?
No, this is the front page. So what the front page does, no front page content has been created yet.
I'm not sure how I get that without, because I see my front page, but I don't see anything else.
Okay. So we'll get to how you set a front page once we create a view, or for those of you who want to get ahead slightly.
How do I see the?
How do you see content at all?
Yeah. Like the image,
Just click on content, and it will list everything, and then you click on one of the titles.
Oh, okay.
So can I ask you why George Washington is really huge?
Yes. So we'll
The picture is really huge.
we'll get to that with image styles. So don't worry, and then we can go back and fix the individual pages as well.
So it's not that when I click this Corolla image settings, I get it wrong.
No. Like this is.
Like yours looks different than mine.
Yeah, so I basically cheated and I didn't download the full resolution version of George Washington. I did the much more manageable like little thumbnail version from Wikipedia. But we'll talk about how to get a more manageable George Washington with the image styles. All right, so time for more data entry here. As we recall from last time, we also have this quote content type. So we're going to add some quotes as listed there on the whiteboard.
and then Corolla, which is
Are you good? Can I fix
I
something?
fell a little bit behind some.
Oh, no, that's okay. Do you want me to take a look?
Standard in the layout, so it's, some-
image settings. If you click on image settings on the left tab,
Okay, I don't have the
and
teaser.
then she was showing you that she had separate alignment for the teaser view and the full view. You had control over
Oh, I
that.
see, okay.
So you can move it to the center, to the right.
All right, so we're going to start adding quotes using the metadata listed there on the whiteboard or on this slide that I will be using for my own reference here. Feel free to put whatever you want as a quote. Doesn't really matter. It's just example data. I go for the mildly humorous myself usually, but you know, feel free to put down whatever you like. George Hamilton.
What's recipient?
So you can add one of those if you like. Those were for when we looked at our source data set, there were some that were quotes from letters. So letters from one person to another person about a third person. I don't have any of those set up as example data, but if you'd like to add some, you can do that, and we can talk about how to incorporate that data into views and so forth. Anyone stuck on anything I can help with? Ooh. All right.
figure out why all my quotes are appearing on the main page.
Oh.
What did I do to do that?
And I'm not seeing the teasers or the images. I guess
Okay.
if I hit read more of the images.
All right, that's a very good point. So, this actually is a good segue into views and why we need them. So, Drupal by default will basically treat all the content you create in this kind of like scrolling feed down your front page, which unless like your site is basically exclusively a blog, no one actually wants that as what they have on their front page. So there are ways that you can set an individual page to be your front page, but in many cases what you want your front page to look like is in some way generated by views. So what views does is it's basically a user interface for SQL, where you can point and click on things and say, all right, I want to display this information from this set of nodes in this particular way. You can display data from multiple nodes together. You can display nodes in other contexts. So let's say you want to have a sidebar that shows you know, the birth and death dates of all the people who are involved in a quote in the sidebar of that particular quote. Or you want to show like the pictures of you know, the correspondence if it's a letter. You can do that using views. You can use views to create RSS feeds for your site. You can use it to make bulk changes. So if you've like changed your path auto paths for your URLs, you can use views bulk operations, which is an add-on module to update all of your paths at once. And if you decide that for whatever reason you need to get your data outside of Drupal, you know, be it for long-term preservation or whatnot, you can use views data export to do that. So it's really powerful and really useful, and also a great way to fix the like eternal scrolling content thing on the front page that really no one wants. So let's create a very simple view. Let's create a view that provides a grid of all the people. We'll have like a grid with the different major people's faces. I mean, it would look better if we had more people in there, but you know, data entry is time consuming, so this will just be a grid with George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, and then we can set that as our front page. I can show you where to go for that. So let's create our first view with these simple parameters. So head over to our site here. We'll go to Structure Views, Add New View. View name, we'll call this people. Yeah.
Is there any gotcha about using people when people is the authentication module? Or is that just my own personal confusion?
No, it's okay. This is the machine name for the view. It'll be, I think, in the database prefixed by view underscore something. So it's no, it can you can, because there's like a prefix on all of these, I believe. Like you can name it literally whatever. I mean, you can call it title if you want. Not that there's like not already 8 billion things called title in Drupal that you need to deal with, but like it can be anything. You can call it something else if you like. You just can't call it the same name as something else that already exists. In views, that's right. If you want to give it a description, you can. This will show up on kind of the list of views screen. It's useful if you have a lot of views, or if you know multiple people are going to be administering the site, to let them know like what is this thing and what's it used for. So we'll say gallery of images of people in the database. It's a nice thing to do. All right, so we're going to show content, and you'll see some of the other things that you could show. You could show a list of taxonomy terms, a list of files, a list of users of the site, a list of comments. Note, however, that these are mutually exclusive options. So if you wanted to create a page that showed like all recently added content to your site, both nodes and comments, you wouldn't actually be able to create one view that does both of them. You'd have to create two views and sort of like glue them together in some way. It's actually kind of an annoying little quirk there, but not a problem in this case. We just want content, and of type, this is going to be person, sorted by newest first. We could do that. There's a couple other options. There's unsorted. I'm not sure what unsorted actually results in it looking like. But because I mean it has to be in some order, right? So I'm actually not sure what that would do. Newest first, oldest first, or title. Well, we'll go with title just because that's fairly transparent. We want to create a page. We do want to do this because this is going to be what we set our front page to, and to do that we need a page. We'll just call it people. Path here, that's fine. It needs to have its own path, but what we're going to do once we're done creating this is we're going to set it to be the front page, so that when you just go to the the front page of the site, this will show up. So this actually isn't all that important, other than the fact that you do need it.
How did you get people-gallery in the path?
I changed the view name to be people gallery, and so it does a derivative of that. Yeah, but you can change it if you want.
Okay.
It can be whatever. It can be whatever you want. Display format. So our display format is going to be a grid of fields, items to display 10 and use a pager. So this is basically what's the maximum number of things that you want it to display on the page itself before you get one of those little kind of like navigation things at the bottom that says like next page, how many things should there be per page. Somewhat counterintuitively, if you want to show all of them, what you put is 0. So we want all of them. We don't need a pager, so we're going to put 0. And if we wanted to include an RSS feed so that someone could be notified every time we add a new person to the database, we could just click on this and it would provide an RSS feed and a little RSS icon link at the bottom. That would be cool, but we don't need to do that for now. So let's just save and exit and see what we've got here. It should take us, I think, to that page. Here we go. All right. Well, this is not a very interesting looking gallery, but it's a start here. Is everyone seeing something that looks more or less like this? Plus or minus? Yeah? Okay. So the next thing we're going to want to do is set this to be the front page of the site. So let's copy our URL kind of after the main part here. Let's copy this for this particular page that we're on. And then we will go dig into configuration. We want to go to configuration, system, site information. And you wouldn't guess that this is where you go to set what the front page is, but that is precisely where you go to set what the front page is. So go to configuration, system, site information, click that. And here is where, if you don't like what you set as the site title, you can change that now. You can put in a slogan, as it says there. How this appears or doesn't appear depends on the site theme, the site email address, and the front page. So this is the default setting, number of posts on front page. What we can do is put in the URL for this view that we just created. All right. And then, bless you, we will save this. So now this looks like, just how we were before, as it should, because we're looking at this page kind of by its own proper URL. But now, excitingly, if all goes well, if you click on the title of your page itself, you still get that page, and there's no more scrolling content feed, which is generally a vast improvement. All right, is everyone with me? Sort of. Patty, can I help with something?
Oh, I just have my quotes on in my matrix for some reason in addition to the people.
Oh, all right. Well, we can fix that in the next step here.
Okay.
All right. So if you sort of hover around in the upper right-hand corner of kind of the display here, you should see a cog. Is everyone seeing that? All right. So click on that, and then hit Edit View. And so this is kind of what the actual views interface looks like here. That super simple configuration screen is only really when you create a view for the first time. This kind of gets you into the guts of views here. So for Patty and anyone else who is seeing more than just people there, what you want to do is add a something under filter criteria here, kind of on the left lower column. So we want to add a filter criteria. You can just hit add. If you already have it, don't worry about adding this again. But what we can do is say content equals type. If we add that filter criterion, you hit apply. You can say, all right, we only want this to be content of the person content type. And then if we hit apply, it will limit it just to people. But for the rest of you, I'll just remove that extra one. For the rest of you, there is actually a filter that you might want to add. Mellington Smith is, for the purposes of our database, a minor historical figure. And so we don't have a picture for him, and so it's going to look kind of odd when we have like this photo gallery to have his name just kind of like hanging out there with no picture. So what we want to do is get rid of the minor historical figures from our grid. So let's, under filter criteria, let's add, and we'll search for minor. And if you search for minor, it should pop right up, minor figure. We'll hit apply, and we will choose is empty, because as you recall, like it's a checkbox if they are a minor. Sorry, is not empty. It's not empty because we're trying to wait. Empty is empty because that will limit it to only people who do not have the checkbox checked and are not minor figures. I've psych myself out there. Yes, is empty is the right choice.
I'm not getting that list,
I don't have the list either, but with operators.
operator list.
The operator list.
Apply.
Huh. What?
Yeah, apply all displays.
Hit that button on the bottom.
Oh, all right. Yes. So check the box. And then hit apply all displays, and then you'll get to the operator list.
Sorry,
Let me start over. Let me just remove this, and we'll start from scratch here. All right, so we're gonna add filter criteria. We will say minor. So you get that, and then you check this box here, and then we hit apply all displays. And now we want is empty. And then we'll hit apply all displays again. And if all goes well, oh, that didn't work. All right, so Drupal has this handy dandy preview down here, and it will show you what the results of your view are. So for instance, let me just remove this. If I were to, well, here we are. In removing that, I get all three values back. And if I were to remove this content type equals person, then my quotes would show up here too. So this is a good sanity check that things are working the way they should.
How did you get that preview?
It should happen just automatically. So if you're not getting anything down there, it might be because you did what I suggested and had the minor figure thing as is empty, which appears to actually hide everything, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. Oh,
If you do it not empty, they do show up.
yes. Actually, I think I know why, because everything has a 1 or a 0 value. So there's no way to say that it's empty, I think. Aha, all right. So because there are no labels, and we have no labels for the like yes no value when we configured the field. What we have here is some invisible options, which is just great. So what you want to do is actually choose is one of as the operator and click the first empty space under select all. There is in fact a second empty space. You want the first empty space. So this is a consequence of when we set up the like minor figure field in order to save some database space. We left them both empty, and it's storing kind of like 1 or 0 behind the scenes. But since there's no label, we get to choose between empty spaces for our value. So this is maybe an argument in favor of like taking the hit in database space and putting some labels in there. But it works even if we don't. We just choose our first blank space and hit apply. Here we are, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, gotten rid of Mellington Smith on our list here. So that's good. Now this is a pretty boring image gallery so far, what with its current lack of images and everything. So let's fix that. What we will do is go up over here to fields, and we will hit add. And we will search for image and check the checkbox. Alright, and search for image, we've checked the checkbox. We'll hit apply all displays. And we don't need a label. We don't need to say image colon and then an image. We know it's an image. We will uncheck this. Our formatter will be image. Our image style, we can go for original images, or we can choose one of these other styles here. If you downloaded and uploaded a really large version of any of the images from Wikipedia, you're probably definitely going to want to go for one of these other image styles. We'll say medium, and we'll choose link image to content. That way, if someone clicks on the image or the name, it'll go to the person's profile. Any questions I can help with?
I lost the connection, and so I haven't been able to. How do you get to this page?
Which the image field, or
Yeah,
this
right
this here?
Yeah.
Okay, let me. So what we can do is, here, let me refresh this. If you go to the page where it's being displayed, there's this cog in the upper right. If you click on it and hit edit view.
Awesome.
All right. So after you've made some changes, you can hit save, and then close your overlay, and we'll see. All right, here's some people. And this is all well and good if the images that you've downloaded are the same size generally and dimensions. But if we were to have more people in the database, you might be getting all sorts of different image sizes, and you might want to have, to make things look a little bit nicer, you want to have a grid where the images are going to be squares that are a predictable size and shape. So this will get us into image styles, or how do you solve the problem of the giant George Washington? So let's go to configuration, media, image styles. And you can see there are 3 styles by default. There's thumbnail, which is going to be really tiny, medium, which is slightly less tiny, and large, 480 by 480. And if we take a look at any of these, if we just hit edit here, you can see that the effect that's been chosen to create this style is scaling. And what that does is it takes the largest dimension, be it the height or the width, depending on the specific picture, and scales it down to 100 pixels, and then lets the other side be whatever dimension is naturally going to be to keep the proportions in check. So this doesn't actually get us the square images that we want. It'll get you, just a much smaller version with the same dimensions as the original size. So let's go back, or we can just click on image styles or hit the back button, either way. And what we're going to do is we're going to say add style. And we will call this medium square. All right, say create new style. And by itself, before you add any effects, it won't actually do anything. So we need to add an effect here. So we can select a new effect. We will select scale and crop. And we will hit add. And let's say this will be 300 by 300. And as it describes here, what this will do is, as opposed to the scale effect that takes the largest dimension and takes it down to the size you specify here, this will take the smallest dimension and take it down to the size you specify here, and then crop the other dimension to match that. So you'll get a square out of it.
Center it, or will it crop from the top or the bottom?
Centered, or sort of equally off the top and the bottom. And at least with this module, and I'm not sure I know of a module that does it some other way, there's no way to specify, like, to change that. So if you always want it to, like, lop off the top, tough cookies. So we'll hit add effect, and you'll see here, all right, this is kind of what it would do to this hypothetical picture here. Scale this to 300, and then kind of crop it off here. We lose a little bit off this side and a little bit off this side, but you get your square. So we have our new image style. For those of you who were plagued by giant George Washington on the content type display itself, you can actually go back now to structure, content types, person, manage display. There we are. And under this format image, you can hit this cog and change original image to medium square or any of the other image styles, so that when you're looking at the person's profile, you don't have the giant George Washington right there. So you can change the image style and hit update. Oh, sorry. This is if you were having problems with like a giant image. This is under structure, content types, person, manage display. And just like how we did before, changing the birth label to be inline, the death label to be inline, now that we've gotten into image formats, you can click on this cog and change the image style to be one of the styles that you've defined or that the system's defined. Yeah?
I have a problem where in the preview, in the edit screen, it's correct, but then when I go back and even when I flush my cache, it's still, it's not right.
Okay, so you actually, I think how it displays on the preview screen is configured elsewhere. So how, like, this is where you specify what it should look like on, like, once it's saved on the page. Is that not working right? So have you, if you set the image style here to be something else, and then look at your node.
But we're putting it in people gallery, right?
We'll get to what. No, we haven't changed the people gallery yet.
Oh,
We're going to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is just sort of a side note for those of you whose like person display was like really weird because you had a giant, because you uploaded the high resolution version of George Washington and he was like taking over the whole screen. This is a way to shrink him down to size a little bit. If you weren't having this problem, don't worry about it. We'll get to our view here in a moment. So let's go back to editing our view. Well, if you're not already editing the view, you can click on the cog here and do edit view. Is this right? Okay. So let's go back to our image field here. Click on that. And our image style will be medium square, the new image style that we just defined. And we will hit apply all displays. And so here we go. We have our images, and they're the right proportions. They're squares. They've been cropped in a way that fortunately doesn't cut off their heads or anything like that, and it's all good. So one other thing we might want to do is put their names underneath their pictures. So to do that, you click this little arrow here that looks like it should be part of add but isn't actually. So if you click on the secret arrow here, you get this new option for rearrange. And then you can just drag and drop into a different order. We'll drag and drop so the title is below the image. We'll hit apply. And there we go. George Washington, Alexander Hamilton. Let's say just for kicks, you want those to be styled in a different way slightly, maybe a little bit bigger. You can actually mess with that without having to do a whole lot. If we click on title, and then click on style settings, and then choose customize field HTML, you can actually make it, an H1, an H2, an H3. You can make it strong. You can make it italics. You can wrap it in some other things. So if we say we want, we'll use an H3 for people's names. Apply, and there we go. Much bigger. Oh, that's just something optional here. So then we'll save and close our view. And if you go back to your view, it should be showing up right. All right. So is everyone more or less okay with what we just did? Anyone got questions? Questions? All right. In that case, we're going to dive into advanced views. So, all right, we did our image styles. Let's expand on our simple views, and what we can do is do some exposed filters and maybe grouping results. All right, here we are. Okay, we'll create a view that shows all quotes grouped by who they're talking about. So let's go to structure again and views and add new view. We'll say quotes. List of quotes grouped by subject. All right, we want to show content again. Of type, we want to set this to quote. We don't want a page in this case. What we're going to want is a block, because what this ultimately is going to look like is it's going to be a chunk of information that appears on the person's profile underneath their biographical information and so forth, all the quotes about the person. So blocks, I know we didn't have a chance to touch on them last time, but they're basically chunks of information or functionality that go someplace on the actual layout of the page. So it could be something like a login block that gives you like the username and password fields so you can log into the site. There's blocks that Drupal provides by default that show how many users are currently online. There are blocks provided by modules, so there's like tag cloud blocks. And you can create blocks yourself, either like custom blocks. We'll go to the blocks interface. I can show you where you can add like a little tagline saying, copyright 2014, Regents of the University of California, and so forth. Or you can create blocks as we're about to do in views. So our block title is quotes. Our display format is unformatted list of titles. We're going to change that. Let's say this should be fields, and we're going to want this to be a table. And once again, we'll show all the quotes. So we have our our quotes, table of fields, 0, which is to say all items on the page. We'll continue and edit. All right. So if we scroll down, what we get is this table of quotes. Right now, the only field that's showing up is the title. Is everyone seeing something basically looks like this?
I still see my people.
You see your people in the
Yeah.
list too? Okay, so what you can do is go back to filter criteria, and if you add one for type, if you just search for type, you can hit apply, and then choose only the check the quotes box. I'll remove my second one here. All right, is everyone now seeing a table just with their quotes? Anyone seeing anything else? All right, so we have these kind of like fake titles that we automatically generated just to make Drupal happy. This isn't actually useful information at all. So we want to add fields for the stuff that we do care about. So we want the quote itself, which we stored in a body field. So we'll search for body. We will hit apply. And our label actually does matter in this case, and we want it because that will be the header of the table. So we will say this is quote. Don't need a colon. So we'll have our label be quote, and then we'll hit apply all displays. So if we scroll down, we see our quotes and our title. And even though we don't actually want the title to be there, it's probably a handy thing to have for now in case we realize that, like, you know, there was some mistake in typing in the quote. We can just click on it and go right back to the note itself and edit it. But we are ultimately going to want to remove this. So what we do also want is we want the date field. So we'll hit add. We'll search for date. Appears in node quote. All right, that's good. This means we've got the right date field here. Hit select. Apply that. Date. All right. So here we can choose our format here for the date and time if we configured some over in date and time settings. You could also choose time ago, or just kind of the default format. But usually you probably want date and time. So let's apply that one. Here we are. We have our quote. We have our dates. So now we also want the names of the people who are involved in this. So we will say subject. Actually, no, we'll leave subject off for now. Let's go with source. Who's the person?
How did you just get there?
Oh, sorry. Under add fields, hit add. We will hit source. We will apply it. And this is fine. Label is source. Formatter is title link. And that means that the person's name will appear with a link to their profile, which is kind of a nice thing. You can also have it be no link if you wanted, or a couple other options, but we'll say title link.
I want to go back into this field because I exited it. Where do I go?
Just click on it. If you click on like the date field.
No, I'm out of that screen.
Oh, all right.
So how do I get back into editing this?
Oh, so you created the view and now you're outside the view editing screen?
Yeah.
Did you save it?
I think so.
Okay. Like if you can hit the back button to get back to it, that's probably your best bet for getting back there. If you can't like hit the back button enough times to get there, you may have to start from scratch. The thing that it warns you here of all changes are stored temporarily. Click save to make your changes permanent. That actually, it's not kidding. So if you were to go back to structure views, it'll only show up on that list if you've saved it. So that's, if you saved it, it will be there. So once you've saved it, you can see it here. I just saved mine. The people gathering in the description. Were you able to get to it?
No,
It's gone.
so it's close.
Okay. So you might want to then look over someone's shoulder, or see if you can look over someone's shoulder to quickly recreate yours there. But yes, an important lesson in saving your views. Yeah, question.
When I noticed that I didn't see it in my views, and then I hit flush all caches, and then it appeared in my views.
All right, but you had saved it though, right?
Yeah, I had saved it.
Okay, so that's one thing to check if you're pretty sure you saved it, but it's not showing up there. Flush all caches often will fix it. But if you didn't save it, then yeah, you're starting over. All right, so let's spruce this up a little bit further here, and let's show a picture of who's doing the speaking here for these quotes. So as you recall, we've filtered it so that we're only showing the content type quotes. And as you probably also recall, there are no images that are part of the quote content type. So what we need to do is we need to get to the image in the person content type through one of these connections, these node reference fields. So what we're going to do is we will toggle down advanced. We are now doing advanced views officially. And what we need to do is add what is called a relationship. And so if you hit add and search for source, that's what we want to add here. You're adding under advanced here, relationships, hit add. And we want it to be source.
What was the other one?
Reverse, so that's sort of if you want to go the other way. So let's say we were creating a list of people and we only want to show people who have been the source of at least one quote. And you want to get at data like, let's say you wanted to like show on George Washington's profile everything that George Washington ever said about everyone. Then you can use the reverse field to get at the data that way. But the normal way is like, look for a field that like does exist in the content type that we're currently displaying, and then go like reach through the node reference and like pull out data from the thing that it's pointing to. So all right, we've got our relationship content source. We will apply this. You can do a different identifier if you want. I usually just go for the default. Sometimes, like let's say that there were quotes that were, from letters that were jointly authored by multiple people. And if we had set up our content types, that could be a multi-valued field. In that case, you might want to add that relationship multiple times and then change the delta, saying, okay, this one refers to the first person, in our multi-valued field. The second one refers to the second person in the multi-valued field. We've set it up so that there's only one source, so it's easy. But you can actually add relationships with different deltas to deal with multi-valued fields. Just keep it in your pocket. We'll hit apply here. And what this will allow us to do is specify this relationship when we're adding a new field. So let's hit add. And we'll search for image. And we will check this box. hit apply. And this time there's this relationship option that's popped up. And we will say field source. Let's not create a label this time. We'll have the image style be thumbnail. Anything bigger, it's going to look kind of funny in a table. And we'll link the image to the content, which is to say the person's profile. We'll hit apply. If all goes well. All right, here we are. Yeah, so there's no image for Millington Smith, which is kind of unfortunate. It looks a little bit funny that way. But you could fix that by setting up a default image as part of that image field on the person content type if you wanted. So now we've basically got this looking the way we want it. We can get rid of the title now, and to do that we'll just click on this title field and we'll hit remove. Alright, now it's if you click on the field that is already there, it should be in the yeah, there's a button on the bottom. And now what we can do, as before, was rearrange things. So we'll hit the secret arrow next to add for fields and hit rearrange. And we'll put image first, then source, then date, then quote. And we'll hit apply. So there we go. So this looks pretty good, but we have let's save for good measure here. This is looking good, but we have the issue now of how are we going to filter this, where we only want the quotes about a person to be showing up on that person's page. We don't actually want this like list of all quotes. We could do a list of all quotes, but if we were to do that, we'd probably want to add a field here saying like who the quote is about. But since we plan on displaying it in the context of a person's page, it'd be really repetitive to have a field for who this is about, because it's all going to be about the person whose page you're looking at. So if we were to be doing this the non-advanced views way, which would be very silly, we could set up a filter and then specify, okay, we want to only show George Washington. And then we could clone this view and say, all right, this time we only want Alexander Hamilton. And this is not a good, smart, programmatic way to do things. Fortunately, we have what Drupal calls contextual filters, which in previous versions used to be called arguments, which is a more common term for the same basic thing. Basically what it does is it's a filter that looks somewhere that you tell it to look to determine what how it should be doing its filtering. So let's we'll save our view just to be safe, or over in a separate tab or window. Let's head over to content. We'll just click on content here, and this will show all of your nodes. Now let's pick a person, let's say Alexander Hamilton, and what we need to do is get that node's node ID. So even if you've set up a different URL path for it, the node is still going to have a node ID, which is like the Drupal system internal identifier for it. And that's what we're going to need to use to be able to test out our contextual filter. So what you can do is hover your mouse over edit here, and then look down at the URL bar, that URL preview that pops up from this. I think most browsers do something like this. So what you want to do is look for the number after node/number. That's the number that you want to jot down and keep in mind, for use with this view. So in this case, Alexander Hamilton is node/1. So we'll use that number 1 later. Is everyone seeing the node ID there as you're hovering over a person? All right, you want to pick a person, if not Alexander Hamilton, someone who there are quotes about. Otherwise, you'll just get a blank screen and you won't know whether you've set it up right or whether it's actually working. You just can't tell. All right, so let's go back over to our view, and we will add a contextual filter. There we go. And what we want is subject.
So where are you doing this? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Under the advanced, under contextual filter.
But in the view.
In the view, yeah.
What view?
Oh, sorry. Our quotes view.
Quotes view?
Yeah. So in our quotes view, where we already have relationship, we're also going to add a contextual filter. Is everyone seeing this? All right. We'll search for a source. Check this box. And we will apply all displays. And this configuration is a little bit messy. So we don't want a relationship here. What we want to do is provide a default value. And we want the type to be content ID from URL. And what this basically says is look at the kind of underlying URL, not the like fancy URL path that you've set up, but like what the node ID is for the current node that you're looking at, and use that to determine what should show up in the view that's like hanging out on that page. So are people still configuring this? So this is under contextual filter, content. Oh, I'm sorry, this should be subject. Oh, I saw source there and just ran with that. This should be subject. So if we had it the way that we just configured it with source, what that would do would pull up. All right. It would pull up all the quotes that that person had said, and we want all the quotes about that person. So what we want is subject. And provide default value, content ID from URL. Oh, sure. Let me remove that and we'll start over again. All right, so we're looking at our quotes view. We've got our table of quotes down here below. And under advanced, we'll have contextual filters. We'll hit add. And then we're going to search for subject, because we want to show all of the quotes that are about the person whose page we're currently looking at. So we'll search for subject here. We'll check this box. And then we'll hit apply all displays. And then we want to do provide default value. And we'll say content ID from URL. And then we'll hit apply all displays. And if it's configured right, you will see nothing in the preview section. And this is because we have not put in a contextual filter. So without having something to look at to say, all right, what's the value of this filter? Whose quotes am I pulling up? Nothing will show up, which is a good thing. But to make sure that it's actually working correctly, we want to put in the contextual filter field here the node ID of Alexander Hamilton or someone else who you know has nodes about them. So we'll, in this case, it's 1. It may be different on your site. We will hit update preview, and here we go. We know it's working here because there is a quote in our database by Alexander Hamilton about himself. So he's also the source, saying that he looks great in a hat. All right. So is everyone getting something that looks like this? Raise your hand if you're you've got something else that's screwy. Yes, okay.
I didn't get anything.
Alright. Let's see what we got. Oh, okay, so you want to remove the subject. So click on that one and hit remove. And scroll down. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you still have the subject contextual filter in there, it'll be trying to apply that as well, and so that's why you would get nothing in your results. So you want to remove that. Just click on it.
What do you want is source?
The one you want is subject. The contextual filter is subject. The relationship is source. And if you also have multiple contextual filters in there, it'll try to be applying both of them, which is why you might not get anything. Is anyone else not seeing what they expect to be seeing on this page? All right, so we have this block that we've created. Let's save it once it's looking right, and then we actually need to make it show up where we want it to show up on the person's profile. So let's go into the blocks interface. So we'll save our view and we'll close it out, and we can go to structure, blocks. And this gets into a detail of theming that I may have mentioned last week briefly, which is the importance of regions. And regions are basically areas of a theme that are like built into the theme itself, part of the theme code. They define where you can put things, how many sidebars you have, footers, and so forth. So if you've gone to structure blocks here, you should have a little link, demonstrate block regions, then your default theme, which in this case is Corolla. And if you click on it, you can see all the different places that you could put things. There's a sidebar first on the left, a sidebar second on the right. There's a highlighted area, there's a main content bottom, 4 possible different areas on the bottom, a long footer. There's just no shortage of regions. Oh, no problem. This is under demonstrate block regions if you're in the blocks administrative interface, which is under structure blocks. So then demonstrate block regions. So this is actually, in general, more regions are a good thing. You'll see there's also like a distinctive menu area up here. More regions give you more flexibility for where you put things. If you find a theme out there that looks just the way you want your site to look, just the right colors and fonts and everything, but it doesn't have the regions you want, you might want to seriously consider making a different theme look like that theme rather than trying to make that theme have the regions you want, because that involves a good deal more work. And I mean, honestly, I tend to prioritize regions top when choosing themes. And some themes on the page on Drupal.org will describe what regions they have. Sometimes you just have to install it and then hit the view block regions and see what it's got. But all right, so let's put our block where we want it to be. We will go view quotes. That should be listed here under the disabled blocks. And we will set it to content bottom.
This is all under structured blocks?
Structure blocks, yeah. And on that page, they'll show all the blocks that are currently enabled on your site, along with the ones that aren't enabled. And then you can enable them by defining a region or by dragging them into a different region. So if we say we want this on content bottom, and we'll save it.
But I didn't see like change there.
Oh, sorry. So there should be well, I mean, it works for any of these. These are all the different regions that this block could be assigned to.
So which block are you
The block that we're working with is view : quotes. That's the one that we just created with the table. And by putting it in content bottom, this actually will work by itself. It should only show up on the person profiles, and they're only if they have quotes about them. The downside to leaving it this way is that it will actually load and look for quotes on every single page of the site, which will slow down your performance. So we want to hit configure here next to it to kind of tamp down this behavior. So once you've gone into the configure button for our block, if you scroll to the bottom, you can have it display only on specific pages. So if for some reason we only wanted the quotes to appear for George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, and we were to have like 50 other people on the site, we could have it only load on those people's pages. What we want to do, though, is under content types, restrict it to the person content type. So this way, it will only load on person profiles. It won't load on any other pages. If we wanted to be more specific, there is a way that you can turn on entering PHP for this, and you could write up some PHP that would specify only show this block for people who are not defined as minor people who, like, by definition have no quotes about them, and it would speed things up a little bit more. But for most purposes, this is absolutely fine. It involves writing no code, so that's handy. So we'll show block person, and we will save it. And we can close this out. Once we've done that, if we go to George Washington and scroll down, there we go. We have our quotes. Or you don't have your quotes. All right. Did you have things show up in the preview correctly when you were able to put in a node ID? Yeah. Okay. So then something's going wonky with the blocks. Let's take a look. And you know you have a quote about George Washington. Try Alexander Hamilton just for. And you entered them all? Okay. All right, still not showing up. All right, so let's go over to structured blocks again. And scroll down. All right, view. Yeah, exactly. All right, so you can actually do it you can do it in one step if you want. Just go straight to configure.
So mine's not working.
For. Okay. All right, so you're actually going to have to set this again. So role develop theme, set to, yeah, choose your region there. Oh, you want to set that to like the bottom.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you save it before you go to configure. I've done this a million times. It'll lose like where you set it that it should be. But you can set it to this interface. So it might just be faster to go straight and configure, set the region there, and then yeah, and then go to the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, you're good. Okay, let's see it again. And now it should work. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Oh. That's, did you configure an image style like that, or is it just?
I don't know.
All right. So if you hover over towards the upper right, you can say edit view. Let's take a look here.
You don't need to configure it. Because it's just doing it within
There,
the
yep,
that's
that's
what you're talking about at the top of the different places. So
Yeah.
you've already configured it
Well,
based on the design.
That's really bizarre. Try changing it to something else and see.
Go to your page.
Might just be smushing it.
In my
Yeah, but let's
quotes,
just
it
see.
said
Okay,
there's
then
no
just
space between the
click on
by
George
and the
now.
who said it.
On
And
the
then scroll down.
like when you're looking at the
So
title.
either-
She was saying
Huh, it's weird that it's like shrinking it from what it says, but
down.
yeah. Let me take a look.
Oh, it's right here, okay. So you go. Oh, yeah. But actually she does have
It should be showing us.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That's, you know.
All right. Anyone else running into sudden strange problems?
Like the source.
Yeah.
You want the source.
Well, in the real world situation.
Remember the source was in the relationship and the subject was in the argument. So, editing.
So I went straight to the fields,
Right.
but then I realized you have to refresh.
Let's just see, so you didn't keep going there.
Yes, question.
It looks like he's got it all set up.
And it's not set up that we can.
Not everything's completed because it's not showing.
Alright,
So he's got the subject.
oh yeah,
source.
alright, so click on the subject, let's take a look at that.
Or you wanted to change the structure.
And you can URL, that's what's alright. Alright. And then scroll down to the bottom here. And then, do you remember what the node ID was for? This one? Okay. That's looking right.
Yeah, except that then when I go to the so it should be.
Okay, so save it.
Looks like it there. I wonder if
Yeah,
it like
save
can't do it retroactively.
Oh, you're gonna have to resave, if you've changed
Oh,
it, you
yeah,
have to
open the,
resave.
open old ones up.
Yeah, and then save them again.
You have
And
to
the
open up
structure
old
blocks.
quotes and hit edit and then see. Okay, cause it can't. So it would be really hard if we haven't.
Yeah, this is where the views bulk operations in the handy. You can like do a mass resave. Alright, view quote, alright, yeah, that looks right.
See if I go to shop. Which one do I want to go to?
You know, you just want to
Sure.
So that's like.
Try
the
under
quote.
content,
That
type,
is what we go into the quote. So if it would be.
I am.
Is that why we can be in one and then say that? Hit edit.
Yeah, that should work. What came up in the preview should be showing up there. That's really
It doesn't have to use.
I mean, it can't know otherwise.
The-
So like everything going forward. would
No,
be
it
right
should.
correctly. And so that's what we're saying, is there has to be something called use, okay, bulk edit or whatever, which is.
I'd probably do something else.
But I think that's a
I
more.
mean, if you want afterwards, if you grant me access to your site, I can try to poke around it and figure out what's going on.
Or maybe I could stay, if you have time to do that, we'll just.
Yeah, sure. Alright, does everyone else have this so far? Okay. So one more thing to touch on briefly is going to be menus, which is just to say that like there are menus, you can add things to them, and then menus appear as blocks that you can place in different regions of the site. So if we go to structure menus, main menu here, we can list some links. And by default, there's just the home page. So whatever page you set as the front page. This isn't a terribly complex site, so there's not a whole lot of natural candidates for adding to these. But let's create an about page, for instance. We'll go to we'll do content, add content, basic page. We'll call it about. Some stuff about this project. And then what you can do is you can actually add it directly to the menu from here. So if you scroll down to the bottom and hit provide a menu link, parent item main menu, that's good. And then we can just hit save. And it'll appear as part of your menu. If we go back to structure menus, main menu, we'll now see there's about and home. And by default, it orders things alphabetically. So if we want home to come first, which is a little more natural, you can just drag it up and hit save configuration. Then to make this menu appear on your site, we're going to head back to blocks. We'll just structure blocks.
Confused. Did you add a menu?
Oh, no, we're just using the main menu. There's, under menus, there's this like main menu by default. Yeah, I just took a look, saw that the about page that we just added is part of the menu. Yeah, you can also add a link
How
directly.
did you get about to show up in your?
Okay, so if you go to content, and if you go to this about page that we just created, or if you create a new basic page, if you edit it, down at the bottom, there's a section for menu settings. And if you check provide a menu link, you can
Okay.
say what should be in the title and what menu it should be part of. All right, so then to get the menu to appear, we're going to go back to structure blocks. And we will go scroll down until we see main menu here. And we will set that. Corolla by default has a menu bar region. Not all themes do. You might want to also just use a sidebar for a menu or something, but in this case, we'll set our main menu block to our menu bar region. And because it's a menu that we want to show up on all pages, we don't need to worry about any additional configuration. We'll just hit save blocks. All right. And so now, slightly covered up by the admin menu, but you'll see that there's now this new menu that we've created that's up here. There's a home link, and there's an about link in our main menu. All right. Any other questions on that? I know we...
Was that navigation on the left?
Yeah, it's annoying. Good point here. So what we can do is you can sort of hover over it and say configure block. And for region settings, we can say none. Do not appear in any region. And then hit save.
Where did you say?
We can do the same for the search bar. Configure block. And then under region settings, for your default theme,
Okay.
you can set it to none. All right. Any other?
What if we wanted to move the search bar or search area to the right of the screen?
So you can do the same thing. Configure block, and then choose the region. If you know what the region is, you can just choose the region here from the list. Or if you're not sure off the top of your head, you can just go back to blocks, go to the demonstrate block regions, look for a good candidate, like header maybe. And then you can drag it to another region and then save. Yeah.
If you don't have that search box to begin with, how would you put it in there?
It's you have it. It's just one of the disabled things under blocks. So if you go to the blocks page and like look down in the disabled things, there should be a search form. No? It should be there by default.
A module I forgot to install? Or?
Oh, it's possible. It's a core module, but if you go to modules, and then under the core stuff, look for search. That is enabled. Yeah, so it's
Search.
there. Are you? Yeah, that's really strange.
Once it clicks.
Does anyone else not have a search bar? Just out of curiosity.
And then to the search.
Okay, Oh, so you have to hit the checkbox for that as well.
It's interesting to think about. Okay. Yeah, what's everything?
Let me try and go back to structure forms. And it's not in the
So this is,
I'll have to Google that one.
Maybe the theme when I originally loaded it.
Yeah, it should be theme independent. Yeah. All right. That's an interesting one. Anyone else with any last minute oddities? Okay. In that case, I will try to very quickly demonstrate getting your site off of Pantheon. So here we are. We're going to log into Pantheon. We will go to the Thursday site. And don't, unless you have external hosting already, and even if you do, it's probably best to just watch rather than try to follow along on this one. What you'll want to do is we'll need to switch to, that's right, we'll have to switch to Git mode here, kind of like, oops, all right, we will say, just like we did when we did the core update, we're going to have to commit the changes that we've made and then switch to Git mode. All right. And then we'll go to, yeah, I just did that.
First commit, then switch?
Yes, first commit, otherwise you'll lose your changes, and that will be very sad. So, change to Git. We'll go to backups, and we will create a new backup. So while it's doing that, on our external hosting setup, what we're going to need to do is create a new MySQL database.
Okay, wait. How'd you get there?
Oh, this is something that you won't be able to do yourself. This is if you actually are ready to switch off Pantheon, you can get inexpensive shared hosting that has cPanel, which is like this interface for managing things like databases and accounts like this. So don't worry about following along on this exactly. So we'll create a new database. We will create a new user. And this is the user that basically Drupal will use to interact with the database. This is all the stuff that Pantheon does for you behind the scenes without you having to configure it. So we're going to add the user to our database and say give it all permissions. All right. And now what we're going to do is we'll go back to cPanel and we will set up a new subdomain. All right. Well, if I can spell Thursday right. We'll create a subdomain off of my existing domain, or you can associate a new domain with it. It's pretty straightforward to do. It will create this new directory that we can use to upload our Drupal code. We'll create that. Now let's check on our backup here. Still going. So, we'll wait until it's done here. Let's see if I can find my Wednesday data here. No, I can do it. What about go away? All right. So then what you would do is, we want cPanel here. You would go into something called Php My Admin, which is basically an interface for managing the database. There. And we'll go to our Thursday database. And what we will do is, because we're short on time, we will pretend that we downloaded the database from Pantheon. We're actually going to use the database from the Wednesday class. We'll go over here to import, and we will that's not very useful. Let's see, do I have this from? Here we are. So this is the database that I downloaded from Pantheon before. We'll say open, and we will import this into the newly created database on our external hosting. Import is successfully finished. And so here, if you look at all of these tables, this is what a Drupal site looks like from the database perspective. All of these fields, you can recognize some of them. Here's some tables that have our field data with birth dates and death dates and all of that. For the most part, you don't really want to muck around in Drupal's database directly. You always, if you can, want to do it through the Drupal interface. But this is what it looks like if you're looking at the back end. And this really is taking a while, isn't it? So we'll go back to using the Wednesday data again. So let's take that's too soon. Here we are. So what you get from when you download things from Pantheon is you get a zipped up thing with the code, with the files, and with the database. You can unzip the database one and get this SQL file, which is what we just imported. And what you're going to have to do actually here is unzip your code and reunite it with your files. So here's our code. Oh, that's the code that I just downloaded. Where's my code? This should be a directory. I'm not sure what the deal is here. Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. Here's our code. So this is our Drupal code right here. We'll then go to our files that we're going to also download from Pantheon. And we will take these files, we will rename it not dev, just files by itself.
So what's in the files directory?
The files directory is everything that you've uploaded to the site. So like all of your images, some stuff related to your theme. We'll rename it files. And what we need to do is within our code directory, we're going to put it in sites, default, and then move this over here. Then what we also need is a settings PHP file, and in that settings PHP we're going to plug in the information that we know about where the database is. So there's all of this documentation kind of built into the settings PHP file. You can also, if you rename the default settings.php, if you copy it and create a settings.php, you'll get the same kind of file. This is one that's already been populated, which makes it a little bit easier to configure. But you put in the information for the database, the password, and save all of that. All of this is the stuff that you just configured as part of cPanel on your new hosting. And now what we do is we take this whole code directory and we connect to our new hosting environment. And we will look for the directory that was created for our code. So Thursday here. We'll delete whatever crap is sort of lying around there by default. And we will move all of our code here into our directory. So if all goes according to plan, and if I remember from Wednesday, it was a very long upload time. When this is done uploading, we'll be able to just go to the thursday.quinndombrowski.com. It will magically pop up because our database will be in the database, the code will be putting in the database, and our site will exist happily in its new home. But this may be a little while, and I don't blame you for not wanting to sit around for it. But that's how you would hypothetically do it. So, SFTP, yeah. But yes, that there is my crash course on Drupal. Thank you so much for sitting through 3 weeks of this, and I can stick around if you have questions. Also, I am working on a book on Drupal for Humanities, and so if you're interested in learning more or getting sort of the more detailed version of this, please send me an email. Email's up here, quinn@berkeley.edu, and I'd be happy to share some of the stuff that I'm working on putting together. Starting with 50 pages on content types that I've recently written. So yeah, just drop me a note and I'm happy to share. So yes, thanks all for sticking with me for 3 weeks, and happy Drupaling.